If I had known that night was our last, I wouldn't have spent half of it sulking over some stupid inside joke I wasn't in on. I was at Noah's place, same as always. We'd been doing New Year's together for the past 6 years, first as college roommates, then as best friends who never really grew out of the habit. His apartment wasn't fancy, but it had become the default hangout spot. Every New Year's Eve, it was him, me, a few of our old crew, drinks we were too old to drink, and music we were definitely too old to dance to. I wasn't expecting anything different this time, but everything felt off. It started with a moment in the kitchen. I'd gone in to grab another beer. Noah followed a few seconds later. He was laughing at something, some dumb group chat meme, probably. And I don't know why, but I just stood there and stared at him. He looked good, like really good, better than usual. Black jeans, a shirt that fit way too well, a little scruff on his jaw, and he was glowing in that way people do when they're either in love or hiding something big. "You look like you're going to prom," I said, trying to keep it light. He smirked. "Gotta start the year looking sharp, right?" I nodded, but I knew that wasn't it. Something was up. Still, I didn't push. I just passed him a drink and followed him back out to the living room, telling myself I was imagining it. That weird, tight feeling in my chest. Just heartburn from the spicy dip. But then, around 11 o'clock, I overheard it. One of Noah's coworkers, some guy the first barely knew, clapped him on the back and said, "I still can't believe you're leaving tomorrow, man. Amsterdam. That's wild." I froze. I must have stood there with a stupid look on my face for a full 10 seconds before anyone noticed. Noah didn't see me right away. He just nodded like it was no big deal, like he wasn't detonating a bomb in the middle of my New Year's Eve, like he hadn't told everyone but me that he was moving across the world in less than 24 hours. And I just left the room. Not because I didn't want to explode in front of everyone, but because I wasn't sure if I'd say something I couldn't take back. Or worse, say something I should have said years ago. It's stupid, right? We weren't dating. We'd never kissed. We'd never even crossed the line. But we were close. Closer than I'd ever been with anyone else. He was the person I called when my dad got sick. The guy who brought me soup when I had COVID. The one who slept on my couch after his breakup and made pancakes in the morning like nothing had happened. And I didn't even know he was leaving. I was standing on his tiny balcony, the one that overlooked the parking lot, gripping the metal railing like it could stop me from falling apart. It was freezing. I didn't care. That's when he found me. "Hey," Noah said softly. "You okay?" I didn't turn around. "You weren't going to tell me?" He sighed, and I heard the door click shut behind him. "It's not like that." I finally looked at him. "Then what is it like, Noah? Because it sounds like you've known for a while." "I have," he admitted, hands shoved into his pockets. "The offer came in right before Christmas. I was going to tell you after New Year's." I laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "After? You were just going to ghost me in the next year?" "No," he said quickly. I didn't want to ruin the night." "It's already ruined," I snapped. We stood there in silence for a second. A car honked in the distance. Somewhere inside, someone popped champagne too early. Then, softer, I added, "You're leaving tomorrow." He nodded. "Yeah. Amsterdam." "Yeah." Jesus. I looked at him again, really looked at him. His face, his eyes, the way he was watching me. And for the first time, I saw it. The hesitation, the thing behind his smile, like he was just as wrecked as I felt. And maybe that's what did it. Maybe that's why I took a step forward and said the one thing I should have said years ago. "I don't get it," I said, my voice quieter now, but sharp around the edges. "Why didn't you just tell me?" Noah exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for a while. "Because I knew you'd look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're doing right now, like I betrayed you." I didn't respond, not right away. Maybe because he was right. Or maybe because I didn't trust myself not to say something reckless. The air between us felt thick, too full for a cold December night. It was the kind of moment I had always avoided. With Noah, things had been easy, unspoken, safe. We never had to define what we were because we both pretended we didn't need to. But standing there, knowing he was about to disappear across the ocean in less than 24 hours. All the pretending felt like a lie. I thought we were closer than that, I said finally, not quite looking at him. You could have told me. You should have. He leaned back against the brick wall beside the sliding door, rubbing the back of his neck. I know, I messed up, He hesitated. I didn't know how to say it without it sounding like goodbye. Because it is goodbye. No, it's not, he said quickly. It's not the end of anything. Are you serious right now? I turned to face him fully. You're moving across the world, you didn't tell me. And you still think it's not a goodbye? No, it didn't answer. Instead, he looked down, his shoulders tightening under his jacket. He'd always done that. Clamped up when things got real. Back in school, he once ghosted a girl for 3 weeks just because she asked if he believed in soulmates. Said it freaked him out. He wasn't great with feelings, but that wasn't good enough anymore. Not for this. I'm not mad that you're going, I added. I'm mad that I had to hear it from Matt. Like, I'm just some guy you drink with once a year. He looked up at that, finally. His eyes searched my face like he was trying to piece together the exact moment he broke something between us. You're not just some guy, he said. Then why does it feel like it? Noah stepped toward me, close enough that I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his breath clouded in the cold between us. Because I didn't want this moment to happen, he said. I didn't want to stand here and see you look at me like you don't even recognize me. I swallowed hard. Then why take the job? His gaze dropped to the concrete balcony floor. Because I needed to know if I could be something on my own, he said, without the safety net, without you always being there to catch me. That hurt more than I expected. Because he wasn't wrong. For years, I'd been his constant. The late-night phone calls, the loan he never fully paid back, the time I helped him move twice in the same year after breaking up with that guy who cheated on him. I'd been his anchor, willingly. But I guess I thought he was mine, too. I would have supported you no matter what, I said. I know, he whispered. So why does it feel like you're running away from me? He didn't answer. The silence between us stretched, heavy and unfinished. Somewhere inside, people started counting down. 10. 9. 8. I looked through the sliding glass door, watching silhouettes hug and cheer, couples leaning in for midnight kisses. I turned back to Noah. 7. 6. He was watching me with something raw in his expression, his hands clenched at his sides like he was holding something back. 5. 4. Noah. 3. I don't want you to go, I said. My voice cracked on the last word. I never wanted you to go. 2. He closed the space between us in one step. 1. The fireworks went off inside. A cheer erupted. The balcony shook with noise. But all I could feel was him. Noah kissed me. It wasn't soft or hesitant. It was 5 years of silence, unraveling in one breathless second. His hand was on the back of my neck, his lips warm and desperate against mine. I didn't think. I just moved. I kissed him back like I'd been waiting for permission. Like this was the moment we'd both been circling around for years but never touched. When we pulled apart, I was breathing hard. So was he. Neither of us spoke. He leaned his forehead against mine, eyes closed, his breath catching in his throat. I should have told you sooner, he said quietly. Not just about Amsterdam, about everything. I closed my eyes. Too late, too soon. Just right, I didn't know which one it was. Maybe all three. The door slid open behind us. Someone shouted for us to come inside and take a group photo. Noah stepped back, just a little, like the spell had been broken. We'll talk later, he asked. I nodded slowly, my heart still pounding, but later suddenly felt dangerously short, because now I wasn't sure what would be harder, watching him leave tomorrow, or wondering what might have happened if I'd said something first. We didn't talk again that night. After the kiss, Noah went inside before I did. I stayed out on the balcony a little longer, my hand brushing my lips like I needed to convince myself it had actually happened. The sounds of laughter and music leaked through the glass door, muffled by the rush in my ears. I wasn't drunk, but everything felt unsteady. By the time I walked back in, Noah was across the room, shoulder to shoulder with a few friends I didn't care enough to pretend I liked. He looked normal. Laughing, sipping something clear in a red cup, nodding along to a story someone was telling. Except every now and then, I caught him glancing at me. Not long enough to be obvious, but just enough to remind me that it wasn't in my head. That the kiss had happened. That everything was different now. I left before midnight turned into morning. No one really noticed. At least I don't think they did. A few waved. One guy offered me a leftover cupcake, but Noah didn't stop me. And maybe that was what stung the most. He just watched me slip on my jacket, my hands shaking a little, and didn't say a word. Back at my apartment, I sat in the dark. Didn't even turn on the lights. Just stood there, jacket still on, trying to slow my heart down. I wasn't mad at him. Not exactly. I was just confused about everything. About why he kissed me if he was leaving. About why he didn't tell me sooner. About why, despite everything, I still wanted more. I barely slept. Tossed and turned for hours, his voice echoing in my head. I needed to know if I could be something on my own, without you always being there to catch me. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me, and maybe that was why it hurt like hell. The next morning, I woke up to a text. Noah, 8:17 a.m. Can I come by before I leave? My stomach sank. Not, let's talk later. Not, let's grab coffee. Just before I leave. The words hit harder than they should have. What time's your flight? Noah, 3:45. But I need to head out by 1. Noah, I can come over around 11? I stared at the screen for a full minute. Yeah. Doors unlocked. Then I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling like it might give me an answer I didn't know how to find. Noah showed up at exactly 11:03. Still wearing that same black hoodie from last night, backpack slung over one shoulder and a small roller suitcase trailing behind him. He looked like someone on his way to a long trip. Calm, focused, packed. I opened the door before he could knock. Hey, he said. Hey. For a second, we just stood there. Then he stepped in, set his stuff by the wall, and let out a breath like he hadn't been breathing since last night. You want coffee? I asked because I didn't know what else to say. Sure. We moved around each other in the kitchen like muscle memory. I filled the kettle. He grabbed mugs. Neither of us said anything. The quiet wasn't tense, but it wasn't comfortable either. It felt like standing in the middle of something that was about to break. Once we both had a mug in hand, I leaned against the counter and looked at him. So, I said. So? Silence. I'm sorry, he said, looking down at his cup. About last night. About not telling you sooner. I'm not mad about the job, I replied. Amsterdam's huge. I'm happy for you. He nodded slowly, but didn't look up. I'm just trying to figure out what that kiss meant. His eyes finally met mine. It meant that I'm an idiot, he said with a weak smile. An idiot who's been in love with his best friend for years and waited until the day before flying halfway across the world to say anything. I didn't breathe for a second. He took a sip of coffee, eyes still on me, like he was waiting to see if I'd break or bolt. You've been in love with me? I repeated dumbly. He nodded. Since... God, I don't even know. Since that trip to Vermont. Remember? Sophomore year? We were stuck in that dumb cabin and played poker with bottle caps for like 8 hours? I remember. You beat me. Barely. And you were so smug about it. I remember watching you laugh and something just shifted, and I told myself it was nothing, that it'd pass. But it never did. I stared at him, stunned. Not because I didn't believe him, but because part of me had always suspected. I just never let myself look at it too closely. You never said anything. Neither did you. Touché? I stepped around the counter slowly, still holding my mug, trying to collect my thoughts. So why now? Why kiss me last night if you were already leaving? Noah set his cup down and rubbed his hands over his face. Because I couldn't not do it. I've thought about that moment for years, and knowing I might not see you again for a long time, maybe ever. I needed you to know. I leaned back against the kitchen table, the wood cool against my fingertips. I needed to know too, I said quietly. He looked up. I've been in love with you too, I added. Probably since that same stupid poker game. The relief on his face was immediate, like a weight he hadn't let himself feel finally slid off his chest. Jesus, he breathed, laughing once. We're the worst. Comically bad. So what do we do now? That was the question, wasn't it? He was leaving in 2 hours, maybe for a year, maybe longer. And we just laid everything out with no time left to fix it, no runway to actually be something together. I looked at him. At the guy I'd known since I was 20. The guy who always stole the blankets. Who sent me memes at 2 a.m. The one who knew my coffee order better than I did. And for the first time, I let myself be selfish. We don't fix it, I said. Not today. He nodded, understanding already on his face. But we don't bury it either. No, he said, stepping closer. We don't. Then he kissed me again. Softer this time, slower. The kind of kiss that said we're not done. Not even close. The kiss didn't lead anywhere. Not in the way it usually would in a story like this. No, we didn't end up in bed. We didn't strip off clothes in a passionate whirlwind or try to cram a year of missed chances into 1 hour. Instead, we just stood there in my kitchen. His forehead pressed to mine, his hands on my hips, my palms resting on the sides of his neck like if I let go, he'd really disappear. The second kiss wasn't about lust. It was a moment. A quiet one. The kind you don't really know how to process until long after it's over. When we pulled apart, he exhaled like he'd been holding everything in for years. You sure you don't want to come with me? He asked. Not joking. My heart twisted. Not because I hadn't thought about it. I had. In the few hours since I found out he was leaving, I'd imagined it a dozen different ways. Me dropping everything, hopping on a flight, us starting over in a foreign city where no one knew our history. But real life doesn't move like that. I can't, I said gently. Not yet, he nodded, even though it clearly hurt. I figured. I offered a soft smile. But ask me again later. That made him laugh. Just a small, crooked grin that pulled at the corner of his mouth and made him look like the Noah I knew. Not the version wrapped in uncertainty and goodbyes. Just him. Us. We didn't talk much after that. There wasn't much left to say that wouldn't make it harder. We sat on the couch with our legs tangled together, the quiet hum of the heater the only sound between us. I watched the clock over his shoulder. Every minute felt like a countdown. At 12:35, his alarm went off. A soft chime from his phone, but it hit like a fire alarm in a silent room. That's my cue, he said, not moving. I swallowed the knot in my throat. Yeah, he didn't rush. He stood slowly, like every movement required more effort than it should. I followed him to the door, hands in my hoodie pockets, heart hammering in my chest. The suitcase was already there, by the wall, looking stupidly small for how heavy this moment felt. Noah turned around and looked at me. This isn't the end, he said, voice low. I know. I don't want you to think this was a goodbye kiss. Or a what-if thing. It wasn't that. It wasn't, I echoed. It isn't. He nodded. I'm gonna miss you like hell. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Good, you better. He laughed. That real, stupid laugh that made my chest ache. Then, before I could say anything else, he grabbed me again. One last hug, tight. Full-bodied. His arms wrapped around me like he was trying to memorize the shape of me, and I let him. I buried my face in his shoulder, squeezed back just as hard, and hoped he couldn't feel how badly I was shaking. I love you, he whispered. It was the quietest I'd ever heard his voice. I didn't hesitate. I love you too. He pulled back, hands still on my shoulders. I'll call you when I land. You better. Noah opened the door, grabbed his bag, and stepped into the hallway. The cold air rushed in, brushing against my bare feet. It felt like something escaping. I watched him walk down the hall, turn the corner, and disappear, and just like that, he was gone. The apartment felt huge after he left. like every square inch of space was echoing with things we didn't get to say. His coffee mug still sat on the counter, his scent still clung to the couch cushion. I didn't touch any of it. I didn't cry. Not right away. I sat down on the couch, pulled my knees to my chest, and stared at the spot where he'd been sitting not 10 minutes ago. It wasn't until the silence fully settled in that the tears started. Not loud or dramatic, just slow, steady drips that felt more like exhaling than breaking down. I missed him already. Not just his presence, but the version of me I was when he was around. The way he laughed at my dumb jokes. The way he always left the toothpaste cap off and blamed muscle memory. The way he never let me spiral too far without pulling me back. And yet, underneath the ache, there was something else too. Hope. That tiny, stubborn flicker of it. Because for the first time, everything was out in the open. No more wondering, no more pretending, just the truth. We loved each other. And that didn't stop at the airport gate. His flight took off at 3:42 p.m. I watched it on a flight tracker app, like an idiot, watching the little plane crawl across the map like a game piece on a board. Somewhere over the Atlantic, he sent me a photo. Him, in his seat, headphones on, eyes tired, and the caption, Noah, made it out alive. Already miss you. You better. Noah, I'll video you the second I'm settled. Noah, you know this isn't over, right? I stared at that last message for a long time. Yeah, I know. Noah kept his word. He video called me that night. It was just after midnight his time, the screen lit with the warm glow of an unfamiliar apartment. I'd been lying in bed, scrolling through nothing, still stuck in the gravity of the last 24 hours. When my phone lit up with his name, I answered without thinking. There he is, he said, grinning at me from what looked like a mattress on the floor. You made it. Barely. Customs took forever, my suitcase handle broke, and I can't figure out how to get hot water here. But yeah, I'm alive. The sight of him, the curve of his smirk, the glint in his tired eyes, hit me like a wave. For a moment, I didn't realize how tightly I'd been holding on to everything until I saw him again and felt something loosen in my chest. You look like shit, I said. Thanks, babe. Missed your compliments. Jet-lagged? Crashing hard. But I wanted to see your face before I passed out. I smiled, despite the lump in my throat. You always this romantic after 14 hours of travel? Only with you. The call lasted 20 minutes. He showed me the little kitchen with one pan and no fridge light, his mattress on the floor that he promised to upgrade eventually, and the city skyline out his window that, even in the dark, looked unreal. Feels like a dream, he said. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up back in my apartment hungover with you yelling at me for leaving dishes in the sink. I laughed. I'd kill for one of your sink piles right now. You still can. Someday. That someday stuck with me long after we hung up, because even though we'd said I love you, even though we'd kissed, even though we were finally in the open, we hadn't figured anything out. We didn't know if this was a long-distance thing, or if it was a maybe when you visit thing, or a let's talk again in a few months situation. It was everything and nothing all at once. Weeks passed. We texted every day, sometimes all day. Voice notes, photos, random memes. I'd wake up to messages from him, selfies at a new cafe, complaints about time zones, excitement over a client meeting he crushed. He was glowing over there. Even through a screen, I could see it. Amsterdam looked good on him. He sounded lighter, like he was finally growing into the person he wanted to be. And I hated how proud of him I was. Because part of me wanted to be selfish. I wanted to pull him back, rewind the clock, take the job off the table, and ask him to just stay. But I couldn't do that. He deserved to fly. And I was trying, really trying, not to let that tear me apart. We never officially defined what we were. There wasn't some big relationship talk or checklist. It was more like this silent understanding that we were something. That there was no one else. That the space between us, no matter how far, didn't mean we'd let go. But even the strongest threads stretch under weight, and distance has a way of making silence louder. It was around mid-February when things shifted. Subtle at first, slower replies, a few days with no calls. He'd say work was piling up, and I believed him. It made sense. He was building a new life, and that took time. But that didn't stop the knot in my chest from tightening a little each day. One night, after hours of nothing, I cracked. "You still there?" No response. I stared at the screen for a long time, the cursor blinking in the empty message box. Then, finally, it buzzed. "Noah? Yeah, I'm here. Just been thinking." "About what?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Noah, about how much this sucks. Not you. Just not being there." My stomach dropped. "Noah, I miss you so bad it physically hurts some days. But I also feel like I'm finally doing something for me. And I don't know how to balance both." I read the message 10 times. Then I called him. He picked up on the 3rd ring, looking half asleep and wrecked. "I'm not mad," I said before he could say anything. He rubbed his eyes. "I didn't mean to pull away. I don't want to drag you through this. I don't want you waiting around, missing someone who might not be able to come back anytime soon." "I'm not waiting," I said carefully. "I'm choosing. There's a difference." He looked at me, eyes soft and full of something I couldn't name. "I don't know when I'm coming back," he admitted. "It could be a year, could be longer." "I know. I don't want to hurt you." "You're not," I said. "But you don't get to decide what I can handle. That's mine to figure out." He was quiet for a while, then nodded. "So what does this mean?" "It means I'm still here. And I still love you." He smiled, broken but real. "I still love you too. Then we just keep going until we can close the distance." And for the first time since he left, I felt like maybe we could. Spring came fast, and with it a new rhythm. Noah and I settled into something that resembled a long-distance relationship. If not by label, then by effort. We FaceTimed every Sunday like clockwork. He'd call me from grocery stores, asking which brand of peanut butter he used to like. I'd send him photos of sunsets he was missing, or my dog curled up with his hoodie like some soft tribute to his absence. It wasn't easy. There were days when the time difference made communication feel like chasing a moving target. Days when one of us was up and the other was exhausted. Days when I resented the glowing city skyline in his stories, even though I was the one who told him to take the leap. But still, we stayed close. Closer than I thought possible across an ocean. And when June hit, I finally did the thing I'd been building up to for months. I booked a flight. 3 weeks in Amsterdam. My first real vacation in years. I didn't tell Noah right away. I wanted it to be a surprise. Something about the idea of showing up and watching the shock melt into that stupid grin made the stress of international booking feel worth it. I coordinated with one of his coworkers, Tomas, a guy I'd only met through brief yo man waves during video calls. Tomas helped me figure out when Noah would not be working. I picked dates, picked a window, and kept the secret so tight it made my teeth hurt. I landed in Amsterdam on a Thursday morning in late June, groggy and greasy and vibrating with anticipation. The first thing I noticed was how warm it felt. Not just weather-wise, but the city itself. It was quieter than I expected. Beautiful, yes, but in that casual, lived-in way that didn't scream for attention. Kind of like Noah himself. I took a cab from the airport straight to his apartment, still unsure how to pull off the surprise. Should I knock? Pretend to be a delivery? Hide behind a door? I went with the simplest option. Buzzed the intercom, heart pounding in my throat. A staticky voice answered. "Hello? It's me," I said, grinning like an idiot. "You forgot to leave the door open." A pause. Then the door buzzed. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, suitcase thumping behind me. When I reached the landing, he was already there, barefoot in a faded t-shirt I'd stolen from him years ago and somehow made its way back. He just stared. "No way," he said, voice low. "You're not here." I dropped the bag and held my arms out. "You gonna make me stand here all day?" He stepped forward and pulled me into the kind of hug that made everything else drop away. No awkwardness, no catch-up period, just warmth and relief, and there you are. "You actually came," he said into my neck. "I told you I would." I know, but I didn't believe it until right now. He pulled back, eyes scanning my face like he was memorizing it all over again. And then he kissed me. And it wasn't like the first time on the balcony, or the second in my kitchen. This one was grounded. Sure, there was heat, but it was built on something real now. Shared ache. Patience, months of waiting. The kind of kiss that wasn't about desperation, but confirmation. We stood there for a while, just the two of us, doorway open, world be damned. Eventually, he tugged me inside and gave me the rushed tour. This is the couch I want to replace. This is the table I built myself. It's crooked. Don't judge. This is the window where I sit and think about kissing you. I laughed. That's weirdly specific. Yeah, well, missed you. We spent the rest of that day tangled together on his too small couch, feet overlapping, pizza box balanced on the edge of the coffee table, and my suitcase still unopened in the corner. We didn't do anything touristy, didn't hit museums or canals or bars. We just existed together again, for the first time since December. And it felt like something in me clicked back into place. The next 3 weeks were exactly what I needed and everything I didn't know I'd been starving for. Lazy mornings with him half on top of me, talking about nothing. Wandering cobblestone streets and watching him light up at weird architectural details. Holding his hand on a tram, not caring who saw. We still argued sometimes. About what to eat. About how I pronounced Dutch words wrong. About the stupid time I walked into a bike lane and almost got hit. But it was ours. The mess, the quiet, the jokes. All of it. One night, on the balcony of his apartment, beer in hand, he looked over at me and said, I want to figure out how to make this more permanent. I blinked. What do you mean? I don't want this to be 3 weeks every year. I want you. The words were clumsy, rushed. Not romantic in the traditional sense, but they hit harder than anything else he'd ever said. I don't know what that looks like yet, he added. Maybe I come back. Maybe you move here. Maybe we find somewhere in the middle. But whatever it is, I want it to start now. Not later. I didn't speak right away. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I already knew. I'm in, I said. Wherever you are, I want to be there too. He leaned over and kissed me again. This time, it wasn't about waiting. Or maybe, or someday, it was a beginning. And this time, I wasn't letting him leave without me. We didn't make any big decisions that night. There was no dramatic montage of me packing my life into boxes, no impulsive change of address form, no visa application scribbled in haste on the back of a receipt. Life doesn't move like that. It lingers. It makes you wait. But something had shifted. A door had opened. For the first time since Noah had left, we weren't just reacting to the distance. We were actively working around it. We stopped talking in maybes and started talking in months. Plans started to form, quietly but surely. And then, like everything good, it had to pause again. My 3 weeks were up. On the day I was supposed to fly back, Noah insisted on walking me to the airport tram stop, dragging my suitcase behind him like it personally offended him. Do you really have to go today? He asked, for the 5th time. If I stay one more day, I'll start skipping bills back home. You can move in with me. You have a mattress on the floor, which you said was surprisingly comfortable. I laughed, bumping into him as we walked. He looked at me sideways, smiling that small, soft smile I'd come to associate with the moments that mattered most. Hey, he said suddenly, stopping. I turned. Noah stood still, right there on the sidewalk. My suitcase beside him, traffic humming behind us, and a row of narrow houses casting long shadows on the cobblestones. Say it again. I knew what he meant. I stepped closer, close enough to smell the faint scent of his laundry detergent and the almond butter he insisted on having every morning. I love you, I said. He closed his eyes and breathed it in. Again, he said, Noah, I laughed. You're being weird. I know, just once more. I put a hand on his chest, right over the spot I had rested my head on every night since I arrived. I love you. He opened his eyes and smiled, and for a second, I felt like we were suspended in that quiet Amsterdam morning. Untouchable. We didn't kiss. Not then. We didn't need to. The rest of the goodbye was a blur. The tram came. He squeezed my hand too hard and kissed my forehead and promised he'd be on a flight to see me by fall. I watched him disappear from the tram window as the city pulled away behind me. This time, the leaving didn't break me. This time, I wasn't just watching him go. We had a plan. We had a next step. Back home, things felt smaller. My apartment, my routines, the way the sun hit the floor at 5:30 in the evening. But I didn't feel alone anymore. Noah was still with me, in texts and calls and late-night video chats where we both looked like garbage and didn't care. He was in the playlists he sent me, the books we decided to read together like we were still sharing a couch, the dumb photos of Dutch street food he made me rate like a critic. We didn't fall into silence again. We didn't let the distance define us. Instead, we built something between the time zones. A few weeks later, we set a date, December. 1 year after everything changed. I'd fly out again, this time for longer. Maybe permanently. Maybe just long enough to make the next move feel less scary. It wasn't about locking down a life together overnight. It was about finally building one, brick by brick. On New Year's Eve, just after midnight, exactly 1 year after that moment on the balcony, my phone buzzed with a video call. Noah's face lit up the screen. Hey. Hey. He was bundled in a scarf, standing somewhere on a crowded street, the sound of fireworks in the background. Behind him, people were cheering in Dutch, kissing, shouting, holding sparklers in the air. I miss you, he said, his voice barely cutting through the noise. I miss you too. Next time, you'll be here. I know. He smiled. This time last year, he said I was scared out of my mind. You hit it well. No, I didn't, he laughed. I kissed you with shaking hands. And I let you go anyway. You didn't let me go, he said. You followed me. That stuck with me. Because it was true. Sometimes, love doesn't look like the big, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it looks like staying on the call when the screen freezes. Like texting, home yet, after a flight lands? Like whispering I love you 3 times on a random street corner because it feels too good to stop? Sometimes, it's a quiet yes to a question no one asked out loud. And in the end, it's not about where you are. It's who you find when the countdown hits 0.